Have you ever felt that there is something beyond what your eyes can see? Have you ever sensed that your consciousness isn't limited to your physical body, but extends far beyond it, connecting you to something greater? What if I told you that the reality you live every day might be nothing more than an illusion created by your own mind? Would you believe it? Jacobo Grinberg, one of the greatest scholars of consciousness, dedicated his life to investigating how our perception shapes reality. He discovered that the external world isn't fixed and absolute. It's a mental construct. And if that's true, it means you have the power to expand your perception and access deeper levels of existence. Today, you're going to learn why you are not your mind and how you can break free from the limits imposed by the illusion of separation. Comment here, "My consciousness is limitless," and let's elevate our perception together. From the moment we are born, we're taught to believe that our mind defines us. We're identified by our thoughts, beliefs, and memories, as if they were the essence of who we truly are. But what if all of that is just an illusion? What if consciousness is something far greater, something that transcends the brain and permeates all of reality? The great trap of the modern mind is believing that it is the center of our existence. Most people remain confined within a limited identity, thinking that their thoughts and emotions define their reality. This creates an illusion of separation. You see yourself as an isolated being, disconnected from the universe around you and enslaved by your own beliefs and conditioning. This illusion breeds suffering. Fear, anxiety, and the feeling of being lost in the world are merely reflections of a mind that believes it's alone. But what Jacobo Grinberg discovered in his studies is that the mind is not who you are. It's just an instrument, an interface between your consciousness and the greater field of reality that surrounds us. The problem is that, without even realizing it, many people spend their whole lives imprisoned by their own minds. Obsessive thoughts, limiting beliefs, and a distorted perception of the world make them feel small, powerless, and incapable of changing their lives. Have you ever felt like you're constantly reliving the same patterns, making the same mistakes, and facing the same challenges? That's because the mind is programmed to operate in a closed cycle, always reinforcing the same narratives. Now, imagine what would happen if you could expand your consciousness beyond these limits. What if you could access a broader perception of reality, where fear, doubt, and limitation simply cease to exist? The question is, how can we escape this mental prison and access a higher level of perception? How can we experience consciousness fully, free from the filters of a conditioned mind? The answer lies in Jacobo Grinberg's studies and the understanding that the mind is only one part of the equation. It isn't the only reality. Let's explore the scientific and spiritual foundations behind this idea and see why great minds, from shamans to quantum physicists, believe that consciousness goes far beyond the brain. Jacobo Grinberg was a neuroscientist and consciousness researcher who dedicated his life to studying the interconnectedness of mind, matter, and a unified field of perception he called the neuronal field. His work blended science and spirituality, exploring what Mexican shamans had known for centuries. Reality isn't fixed, but rather a projection shaped by our consciousness. Grinberg conducted fascinating experiments to show that the mind not only interprets the world, it actively creates it. He demonstrated that when two people enter a deep state of mental connection, their perceptions begin to merge. This indicates that individuality is an illusion and that we are all connected by a greater field. Other scientists and thinkers have reached similar conclusions. Quantum physics suggests that the observer influences the outcome of experiments, implying that consciousness can shape matter. Geniuses like Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison even reported that their ideas seemed to come from an information field, as if they were accessing something beyond their individual minds. If that's true, then you can expand your perception and access a level of reality much broader than you ever imagined. Let's see how this happens in practice. The illusion of the mind and the true nature of consciousness. Most people believe their mind is the source of consciousness, but that belief may be one of humanity's greatest illusions. The mind is merely a filter, a mechanism that organizes and interprets reality, but it isn't the origin of your consciousness. Think of a radio. It picks up invisible frequencies and turns them into sound, but the radio signal already existed before it was received. In the same way, consciousness isn't created by the brain. It exists independently. The brain simply tunes in and translates this consciousness into human experience. Grinberg studied this phenomenon in depth and noticed that the mind imposes artificial limits on our perception. From childhood, we're conditioned to see the world in a specific way, with fixed ideas about what is real and what isn't. But these are just mental constructs. So what happens when you start questioning this structure? Something extraordinary. Your consciousness expands. You realize that you're not trapped by your identity, your beliefs, or the narratives your mind repeats every day. You can free yourself from the illusion of a separate self and access a deep connection with the whole. Scientific experiments have already shown that the observer influences reality. In quantum mechanics, for example, the particle-wave duality reveals that matter behaves differently in the presence of an observer. This means that the reality we perceive isn't fixed. It's shaped by our consciousness. Shamans and spiritual masters have known this for centuries. They understood that the mind can imprison or liberate, depending on how we use it. And here's the key. If you believe your mind is all there is, you become its slave. But if you see it as just a tool, you can transcend it and access a higher level of existence. The question is, how can we do this in practice? How do we break free from the mind's illusion and expand our consciousness? Attention as a vehicle for consciousness. If the mind isn't the source of consciousness, then how do we access a broader perception of reality? The answer is attention. Whatever you focus on becomes your reality. Jacobo Grinberg discovered that attention isn't merely a mental mechanism, it's a vehicle for consciousness. The way you direct your focus determines your experience in the world. This explains why some people remain trapped in negative patterns, while others tap into elevated states of creativity, intuition, and mental expansion. Imagine your attention is like a flashlight in a dark room. Wherever you point it, that area lights up, but the rest of the room remains in shadow. Most people spend their lives with the flashlight aimed at problems, fears, and external distractions, believing that's all there is. They don't realize that by simply moving the flashlight, they could see something entirely different. This principle also explains why whatever you focus on grows. If you continually direct your attention to worries, lack of money, fear of the future, or superficial distractions, your mind reinforces that reality. But if you shift your focus to higher states, like gratitude, presence, and expansion, your perception of reality begins to change. Shamans and spiritual masters have always emphasized the importance of controlling attention. They knew that by deeply focusing on an object, sound, or sensation, you could alter your mental state and access new dimensions of consciousness. This is precisely what happens during practices like meditation and visualization. By intentionally concentrating your attention, you break the mind's automatic programming and open up to a new way of perceiving reality. Grinberg also realized that time and perception are linked to attention. In meditative or altered states of consciousness, time seems to slow down or speed up, because when we're fully present, the mind loses its rigidity and operates more fluidly. The big question is, how can we train our attention to expand our consciousness? How to expand consciousness beyond the body and identity? If consciousness isn't confined to the brain, then it can extend beyond the body and personal identity. This was one of Grinberg's most fascinating discoveries. While the mind creates the illusion of separation, consciousness is limitless. Most people identify completely with their bodies and personal histories. They believe they are nothing more than their memories, emotions, and thoughts. This sense of identity creates an artificial boundary, preventing them from realizing that consciousness can go far beyond the individual self. But there are moments when that separation vanishes. Have you ever felt such a deep connection with someone that you seem to know what they were thinking before they spoke? Or been so engrossed in an activity that you completely lost track of time? These moments reveal that consciousness can expand far beyond what we imagine. Grinberg studied shamanic communities in Mexico and observed that healers and seers accessed information that seemed to come from a greater network of knowledge. They weren't just using their rational minds. They were tuning into a field of collective consciousness. This idea is echoed in quantum physics, where the phenomenon of entanglement suggests that particles once connected continue to influence one another regardless of distance. This means that while your mind may be limited by your body, your consciousness isn't. It can connect with other minds, access information beyond space and time, and perceive realities that logic could never comprehend. To expand this perception, you need to break free from an exclusive identification with the body and with your thoughts. This can be achieved through practices such as deep meditation, which allows you to experience states of consciousness beyond the ego, out-of-body experiences and lucid dreams, where you discover that your identity isn't confined to your physical body. Flow states, in which your mind dissolves into the activity and you feel completely connected to the present moment. The first step is to understand that you are not your mind nor your body. You are something much greater. Once this understanding becomes real for you, your perception of reality transforms completely. The role of vibration and energy in the expansion of consciousness. If everything in the universe is energy and vibration, as suggested by both Jacobo, Grinberg, and quantum physics, then our consciousness is also subject to these laws. This means that the higher your vibration, the greater your capacity to perceive expanded realities. Dense matter, like the physical body, vibrates at lower frequencies and is easily detected by our senses. In contrast, subtle energy, thoughts, emotions, and consciousness operates at much higher frequencies. This explains why elevated states of consciousness, such as intuition, telepathy, and mental expansion, occur when we detach from denser vibrations like fear, anger, and attachment to material things. Grinberg studied how vibration impacts mental states and discovered that certain practices can profoundly alter our perception of reality. Some of these practices include silence and meditation. Reducing chaotic mental activity raises your vibration and expands your perception. Mantras and specific sounds, chants like Om or binaural frequencies, help synchronize the brain and elevate your vibratory state. Healthy eating and lifestyle habits. What you consume affects your vibration. Natural foods, pure water, and harmonious environments boost your energy. Another essential factor is the quality of your thoughts and emotions. Negative thoughts, excessive worries, and superficial distractions lower your vibratory frequency and limit your perception of reality. Conversely, emotions like love, gratitude, and peace elevate your vibration and open your consciousness to higher dimensions. Have you noticed that when you're truly joyful, everything around you seems to flow better? That's because your vibration is high and the universe responds to that frequency. The great secret to expanding your consciousness is this: the higher your vibration, the more you perceive reality as it truly is, an infinite field of possibilities and connection. Practical techniques to expand consciousness. Expanding your consciousness isn't an abstract or unattainable idea. Jacobo Grinberg studied methods that allow us to access higher states of perception by combining scientific practices with spiritual traditions. The key to this expansion is training the mind to break free from automatic conditioning and to tap into more subtle levels of reality. One of the most effective methods is mindfulness. The modern mind is constantly scattered, jumping from one thought to another, trapped by worries and distractions. When you focus on the present moment without judgment or expectation, you begin to perceive a reality beyond your mental narrative. Simply breathing consciously, feeling every part of your body, or observing your surroundings with full awareness can change your perception and break your identification with the limited mind. Another powerful technique is to observe your thoughts. Grinberg noticed that many people mistakenly believe they are their thoughts, when in reality, these are just activities of the mind. By stepping into the role of an observer, you begin to realize that your consciousness is much larger than the fleeting ideas that come and go. Watching your thoughts without getting emotionally involved helps your mind slow down, paving the way for expanded states of perception. Using sounds and vibrations can also help you connect with higher levels of consciousness. Mantras, binaural beats, and certain types of music stimulate specific areas of the brain, creating a state conducive to mental expansion. Many shamans and meditators use repetitive sounds to induce trance states and access deeper dimensions of reality. Deep introspection, whether through meditation or contemplation, is another way to break free from the illusion of separation. When you quiet your mind and dive into the silence, you realize that your consciousness isn't confined to your body or your ego. In advanced states of meditation, many people report feeling dissolved into the whole, experiencing a unity with the universe. Regular practice of these techniques strengthens your ability to see beyond your conditioned mind. Gradually, you begin to notice that your identity isn't limited to your thoughts and memories. It's connected to something much greater. The more you cultivate this expansion, the more your perception of reality transforms, allowing you to access dimensions that once seemed unreachable. The illusion of time and the malleability of reality. Jacobo Grinberg realized that the way we experience time isn't an absolute truth, but a construct of the mind. The idea that the past, present, and future exist in a straight line is merely a convention our minds use to organize reality. However, when your consciousness expands, this perception of time can change or even dissolve completely. Various experiments suggest that time is flexible and can be influenced by your mental state. In deep meditation or altered states of perception, many people report that time slows down or even vanishes. Moments of intense presence may seem to last an eternity, while periods of distraction can pass in the blink of an eye. This happens because time isn't an external, fixed entity. It's an experience generated internally by the mind. Shamans and spiritual masters have known this for centuries. They understood that by accessing expanded states of consciousness, they could mentally travel through time, reliving memories with vivid clarity or even perceiving future events. This idea aligns with studies on precognition, where individuals claim to see events before they occur. Quantum physics also supports this view by demonstrating that time can be relative. At the subatomic level, particles can exist in two places at once and communicate instantaneously, defying traditional space-time constraints. If this is true at the very foundation of reality, why shouldn't our experience of consciousness be similarly fluid? The illusion of time is closely linked to the illusion of separation. Our minds make us believe that we're confined to a linear timeline, from birth to death, as if we were isolated beings marching toward a definite end. But when you access higher states of perception, this notion dissolves, and existence becomes much more fluid and interconnected. If reality is shaped by the mind and time is merely a relative concept, then our experience can be transformed at any moment. The past doesn't have to define the future, and the way you perceive the present can be reprogrammed. Once you grasp this truth, you become capable of creating an entirely new reality, free from the limitations imposed by the illusion of time.